How are all of you lovely people doing today? My name is John, and welcome to another beautiful episode of the Zombie Storyline Q&A. This is where I take your questions about the zombie storyline and I answer them. Whether it's a big, a small, or a simple question, I'm always more than happy to take it on, so you can either leave them down below or tweet me at JohnnyJ25. Without further ado, let's begin. We're gonna kick off today's episode with a question from XRU Sax, and he asks, Johnny, what are your thoughts on the potential connections between Griffin Castle, der Eisendrache, and Griffin Station, Moon? Do you believe they're connected, and better yet, do you believe the Eisendrache will lead to a Moon remake? This all began with a tweet from Call of Duty on Twitter. They tweeted, hard to infiltrate, even harder to escape. What's inside? Griffin Castle. Hashtag Black Ops 3 Awakening hits PlayStation 4 February 22nd, 2016 PDT. This was a nice and dandy tweet. It was used to promote the Eisendrache, but what was really cool about it was the fact that one, we got a nice image of the map as well as a name for the castle. We were told it's Griffin Castle. Now, one quick Google search of Griffin Castle will take you to an actual Griffin Castle. You can see it pictured here, although it's destroyed, it's in ruins, and the only interesting thing I can find out about it was that there are a network of tunnels below the castle that had not been discovered until after World War II. Beyond that, it's not a fairly interesting castle. We can then also look at where it is on Google Maps in comparison to coordinates that we've been given prior. You'll notice on this map there are three locations marked. There is the Hohenwerfen Castle, as well as the Eisriesenwelt Ice Cave, and these locations are actually so close to one another that you can barely tell the difference between the two markers. Now, Eisriesenwelt was a place that we were given the coordinates to, and this made us believe that the castle right by it, the Hohenwerfen Castle, was the inspiration for the Eisendrache. Now that we've discovered that there actually is a Griffin Castle and it has the same name as the castle in game, as well as in the same country, then we started to think, well, maybe this would be the actual location of the map, and that could very well be. It could be based on the actual Griffin Castle, but the actual Griffin Castle is just a bunch of ruins, and it's pretty far from the location that we've been given prior. And we've also been told we need to search for the frozen one, which makes sense in a place like Eisriesenwelt, possibly in the nearby Hohenwerfen Castle. So I just don't know if really Griffin Castle is the same Griffin Castle in game. All the stars don't quite seem to connect. This leads us to think that maybe then Griffin Castle is related to Griffin Station, the place where Moon takes place. And this is my personal opinion. This is where all the points come to connect. Let's consider Black Ops 3 before the release. We were given a trailer called A Brief History of Call of Duty Zombies, and it showcased many different zombie maps. One of the interesting things was that the trailer hid a very special frame. They hid a remake of the Moon loading screen, and this sent the community ablaze. We all went, wait a minute, they're remaking the Moon loading screen. Does this mean that there will be a Moon remake? And many of us theorized that, including myself. Now, unfortunately, the Awakening trailer came out and we were given Der Eisendrache, a perfectly fine map, but not the Moon remake many of us suspected. That didn't mean hope was lost. The promotional art for Der Eisendrache featured rockets very similar to the ones that we've seen in previous maps, including Moon. So let's look at all the pieces of evidence. We have Der Eisendrache, which features rockets. We have a Moon loading screen that has been remade, and the castle in which this new map takes place is Griffin Castle. To me, this is a clear and obvious connection to the map Moon. It's never been definitively stated, but it's clearly there. Now, does this cut out hope for a Moon remake? No, I don't think so. Maybe we can go from Der Eisendrache to Moon. Or maybe this is what would have been Moon in another universe. Maybe we're in the universe of the Richthofen whom was killed by Richthofen at the beginning of the Giant, and in this universe, Griffin Station, rather than being on the Moon, is actually on Earth in the location that the Eisendrache will take place, and now it's just under the name of Griffin Castle. And this is where many of the Group 935 defectors did their work in secret from Dr. Maxis. This could be the next place that Richthofen would have wanted to go, but because he was assassinated by himself, he didn't. And it could very well be that maybe they use the rockets to get to the Moon, or they use the rockets to get to the pyramid. Not to say that the pyramid will be important in this map. It could be, it could not be. Maybe it'll be important in a later Moon remake. Maybe Griffin Castle is where Richtofen would get to Griffin Station. Maybe they had some kind of teleporter or they had some kind of rocket, and they go from Griffin Castle to Griffin Station, because I still think Moon will be relevant. I still think that they have to do something with this map. Why else would Treyarch show us a remade Moon loading screen? This was a very calculated decision. Somebody got paid to make that loading screen, and then they included it in the trailer. Maybe this is where the climax will happen. Maybe this is where everything's building up, and the Eisendrache will set it up. But either way, the fact that Griffin Castle and Griffin Station have the same Griffin in their name is incredibly important, and clearly illustrates a link between the two maps that I'm sure will be explored in future maps, as well as the Eisendrache. Moving on, we have a question from Taylor Decker, who asks, "Hey Johnny, is it possible that the summoning key is the orb from Moon?" This was a theory first propagated by a certain Scroon on YouTube, and was able to get a grip and hold on, and has since taken a foothold in the community. And some people believe this to be a viable theory, but I personally think it's a little bit of nonsense. Let's take a look at the stones side by side. Sure, they have the same base pattern, but beyond that, they're very different. So sure, there are circles around the sphere which are evenly distributed, and then creates a sort of canal that runs throughout the sphere. But beyond that, when we look at the real details, these are two clearly different artifacts. The summoning key has a lot more detail. Within the trail, there are what almost look like several roots or veins that run through the trail, and the circles have these symbols that glow, and this is clearly something different. Like, this object looks like it has more weight and power than the orb that we find on Moon. The orb that we find on Moon is much more bland. There's far less detail. It's a lot more polygonal, while the summoning key actually flows and is all connected. These devices, while they may be in the same vein, are probably not the same devices. I believe that the summoning key is a key that is far more powerful in the universe. This is something that incredibly powerful forces are fighting over. However, the orb on the Moon was something that we just sort of bounced around the area. Like, nobody was fighting for this object. I think that the orb on Moon was a real device that was sort of, I guess, works in tandem or is in some way connected to the MPD pyramid, while the summoning key is a device with incredibly great universal significance and has the potential to change things forever. And I think just the fact that these objects carry so much more different weight is clearly a sign enough that they are not the same devices. I think people just look at the fact that they're spheres and have the same base pattern and assume they're the same thing. It's taking an inch and then asking for another mile. It just doesn't make sense to equate them as the same thing. We're gonna end today's episode with a question from Save12, who asks, "What did the police officer do to become one of the 4 people to do bad things? Love your vids." Well, thank you for the compliment. I'm gonna assume you're asking, what did Jack Vincent do to become one of the sinners in Shadows of Evil? And to answer this question, we need to look at the Shadows of Evil intro. Now, this is a fairly surface question, but I thought I would bring it up because I think this is something that many people misinterpret. Take a look.
Hey, we got a problem. A big problem. The mayor's trying to make a name for himself, sticking his nose where it don't belong. He's looking into allegations of police bribery. What do you say we get together at the usual joint? Talk things through. Figure out a way to put this to bed before it gets out of hand. Trust me, have I ever steered you wrong before?
You see, Jack Vincent is a crooked cop. He started off as a good man, but he was slowly corrupted by the darker side of Morgue City. He's somebody who saw the worst of the worst every day, and it started to grow on him and eat away at him, and eventually he became a corrupt cop. A new mayor was elected in Morgue City, and this mayor wanted to crack down on corruption, and Jack knew he was in trouble. He was one of the most corrupt cops in the city, so he had to start cutting ties, and he needed to remove any paper trail that would come back to him. Many people think that he was sent to Shadows of Evil because he was a corrupt cop, but no. He was sent to Shadows of Evil because of what he did to remove the evidence that he was a corrupt cop. You'll notice that he kills his accomplice in front of the Ruby Rabbit. The Ruby Rabbit is where his ritual actually happens, which is a big signal that this was the actual deed that put him in Shadows of Evil. There are many cops who were crooked in Morgue City. He was not the only one taking bribes, but the fact that he is the one in Shadows of Evil puts significance on him, and since he is being ritualized in front of the Ruby Rabbit, then clearly that is the deed which actually sent him to Morgue City, otherwise known as Shadows of Evil. That's his sin. It was murdering his accomplice in order to save his own skin. On that bleak note, we are going to wrap up this episode of the Zombie Storyline Q&A. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and possibly subscribe for more episodes. I upload multiple every week, and if you enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll love the next one. As always, you can leave your questions down below, or you can tweet me at JohnnyJ25. I'm going to be heading out though. Have a wonderful day, and bye.